Hey, Tinessa Nicole here, and I am back for another episode, so to speak, on triggers and trauma. So, in the last video, I mentioned that I wanted to dive deeper, go more in depth with the conversation of triggers and traumas. And so, let's go, shall we? I hope that you enjoyed the last video on it. I hope you got some newfound revelation on yourself, and I thought we would take it a little deeper this time. So, for this one, I wanted to talk about patterns. Sometimes patterns can be a sign of a past trigger or a past, or even a current trigger or trauma. And so, a pattern can be, I'm not sure if I've shared, I think I have in past videos, how for me, I typically, a pattern of mine is staying at my place of employment for 5 years, and then I move to the next place. And this year I am breaking that pattern. No, I broke that pattern because I've been at my current location for 5 years and a couple of days, which I've never done before because I always leave um, a little before the 5 year mark. And so I still, to be transparent, I don't know where or why I'm on that pattern or I was on that pattern. But it was a pattern of mine. What are some patterns in your life? Maybe it's you always gravitate to the same type of people, or love interests, or friendships that that maybe have the same issues of something from your past. So let's say, for instance, you don't have a good relationship with your father. Let's use that for an example. Maybe your dad always yelled at you or belittled you or was condescending or just, verbally abusive. And so now you date a person that does that, and you've dated people over and over and over again that have the same pattern types as, say, your father, or for men, let's say your mother was like that, and so you always date people or women who are like that. And so that is something that is definitely a trauma. And so you would think that, well, if it's a trauma, it's something that I don't like, it's something that's painful, it's something that makes me feel uneasy, and so I wouldn't gravitate towards that. But it's the opposite. Oftentimes, that is what we do. We go to what we know. And so if that's all you know, say again for a female, is being belittled, then you continue to stay on that pattern. And even though it may be toxic and it may be horrible, you still stay in a situation or look for people like that because of fear of the unknown. And so at least you know what to expect with dealing with people like that. And so you keep doing it. But today's a new day. Today's a new episode. And so we change that today. And you get comfortable with being uncomfortable because it's there that change happens. Like with a gym example, it's when your muscles are sore that they're breaking down to be built back up. And so I want to tell you that's what it's going to take, even with you. You have to be broken down to be torn, to be built back up. You have to tear some things down. And so it may be walls of comfortability you have to tear down and be in a state, be in a season of being uncomfortable so that you can in turn be comfortable in the long run. And so it's not going to be fun at first. And I always like to use the financial one as well, because if all you've ever known is, say, your parents or whoever raised you, always lived paycheck to paycheck. They have the saying, you rob Peter to pay Paul. And so that's how you live your life now. You get a little extra money or you get a raise, and instead of saving that money, you find something else to spend it on because that's the pattern. That's what you're used to. And so I want to encourage you to, instead of doing that, and I'm not going to ask you to do anything like super crazy, like save half of your paycheck, but you can definitely say take $100 per paycheck and start saving it, or maybe 50 or whatever it is that makes you uncomfortable though, that you can start pulling out so that you can save, just to break the pattern, because that's what we're talking about, is breaking patterns here. If you always, like I said, dated the same type of person, and maybe you're in a relationship now with a person that reminds you of your dad or something, and they're abusive verbally or however, you break that down. And it can start with a simple conversation and letting them know that, I'm working on me, and so this is no longer acceptable. Not everyone is going to embrace your change. Not everyone is going to welcome you with open arms and, give you kudos and hand claps because you're working on yourself. And so this is something that's definitely an inside job. And it's like the picture behind me versus me. That's what it's about. It has to be you versus you. While it's great if people do celebrate your changes and welcome you making changes, by far everyone won't, because they're accustomed to you being and carrying yourself the way that you have. And so they're not going to want to have to deal with themselves, because that's what happens when you work on you. Those closest to you are going to be forced to work on them, or you're going to change so much they're no longer going to be appealing to you. And so then you're no longer going to want them if they're not too working on themselves. But this is something that has to be personal to you, and you have to love you enough to want to make the changes. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here with you and tell you it's easy. And I can tell you that because that's a journey that I'm on right now. Lost a lot of relationships because of it, but I'm better in the end. Are there times that it seems like, man, like, I wish I could call so and so because, I missed their conversation or whatever. But for me, while I'm working on me, there are certain people that are just, it's a no contact zone for me. And I'm not going to answer their calls or texts either, because I'm really working on something here and I want to be a better me. And so I want to encourage you to take this journey with me and want to be a better you. So we're again in episode 2, and this episode we're working on our patterns. So you're going to do what? Get your notes, and you're going to write down some patterns that you have, because geniuses take notes and you're a genius. And you're going to start working on those patterns. Again, like I always invite you to do, leave comments, questions, concerns, anything you want. Again, I definitely would love to help you in any way that I can. I've been on this journey for about a year and a half, and so I can definitely speak to some things or give some insight on some things that you may have questions on. So what I want you to do is hit the subscribe button, number one, and turn on your notifications so that way you know when I'm going to be posting new videos. Also, you can follow me at Instagram. I am at Tinessa Nicole. I look forward to not finishing, but going more deeper and peeling back another layer on the next episode. And so until then, we'll talk soon. Bye bye.